Association for Students' Social Welfare in Nigeria. And so we'll be taking a look at the implication of the new law. Student loan law is no longer a bill in Nigeria. So let me start off by asking Mr. Victor, of course, the president has already signed the amended version of the bill into law. Should we be excited? Should parents, guardians, and all those responsible for payment of school fees for children in public institutions in Nigeria's tertiary institutions, should they be happy?
Definitely it is in two ways.
Okay.
Yeah. One is that we have a government that is actually listening and doing something about the plight of the Nigerian student, which has been what our advocacy with the Association for Student Social Welfare has been for the past 7 years. You know, it's just, to us, it's even more of a radical and sudden shift into the attention, and that means our voices are being heard, you know, as an advocacy group. And that is very laudable, you know, that is very beautiful. And the other side of it now, which is of a critical concern, is in three ways. One is that from the angle of the government, the government in its entirety cannot rest on its laurels, because there are a lot of good things that are in Nigeria like this, you understand, and many people are not taking advantage of it. You know, it's not to actually sound negative, but as an advocacy group, you know, we are looking at a holistic. Yes, school fees issue is one of the major issues that is bedeviling the educational sector, but we know there is a plethora of issues. You know, there are plethora of issues, and this has to do with the human capital development, right? Yeah, but we're looking at infrastructure. We're looking at other aspects. You know, the student now have capacity to stay in school. So what of the quality of the education? You know, it's not too early to actually sound this other warning. You understand? Because if that means if you are paying attention to us, pay attention to us in full. Yeah. So when we look at the how do we measure progress in the education sector, then we are looking at what is the percentage of the budgetary allocation to education. Currently we are at 6.7, in which United Nations is talking about 15 to 25. You understand? So we are far. So in the past it has been we are investing in infrastructure, but the students have not been taking cognizance of. But this is coming there. So that is one. Number two is that, like people will say, Nigeria is good on books. So will this also end up as one of those things that we have enacted and it's not trickling down to the last person?
Yes, exactly. That's the next question I wanted to ask. Do you foresee a problem with implementation of this law?
When you talk about problem, then let us term it as challenges. Definitely there will be challenges. You know, therefore we are first strong in as a private organization, as an NGO. We are first strong, and we have seen a lot of partners in the private sector and that are gathering them together, implement with this. You know, so the challenges with this law will not be a peculiar one. Yeah, it's going to be from the existing issues, maybe the kind of nature, the attitude of Nigerians, maybe to loans. Let's say, you know, to loans, the banks can tell you. You understand? The banks can tell you that we have not been able to do well, and all of the reason is because our database is not, our books are not well kept. You understand? So how do you track? You know, even in the qualification for the loans and all those questions, and those questions are being asked, but it's not going to be isolated from the existing challenges that such programs have been having. So, and then we are talking about our succession, you know, succession plans, you know, and that is why honestly that the government is the one trailing the you know, creating this part right now is the question of how involved is the private sector. You know, because we in our organization we always look at it that it is better that progress and development is started by the private sector, then the government comes into parts with. Now, but because to be able to monitor what is government's own, You know, because it's our own. You know, I've collected my own share. You know, that is still a mindset. You know, and that's why the recommendation we'll make is that how do we bring in the National Orientation Agency to be able to now, you know, like we did do with sensor, like we did during COVID-19, how do we sensitize even to the grassroots? You understand? How many people are aware? How do we carry stakeholders and agencies that are in charge of these things to be able to know how these things are actually going to be administered?
Okay, part of the reasons why the bill was in the first place rejected and sent back to the president, and then it now went back again to National Assembly for amendment, has to do with the issue of repayment plan. The initial bills prescribed that you start paying back 2 months after your compulsory national NYSC. Whether you have a job or not was not a condition. But now the new the amended one that has been signed into law says that you start paying 2 years after you get a job, meaning that if you finish NYSC and you stay for 10 years without a job, I don't know the details, but this amendment really, do you think it was actually a strong reason enough in the first instance for the bill to be rejected and has to be amended for reenactment?
Okay, so one of the criteria again now that has been added in the new bill is that the skill acquisition, vocational studies,
also captured,
which is a very, very laudable one. And one of the statements that the president made that could cause a shift in the future is what, you know, with one of the things that in our advocacy, 4 things that we identify is the low housing. You know, the challenges of housing in the university, in the tertiary institutions. The next thing is food, and then the next thing is skill acquisition, and the other one is the financial intelligence for the students. You know, to be able to have a holistic perspective about life. So then bringing skill acquisition to be equated to degree is something that we might not know the effects now, but that in 10 years' time,
to see the impact.
We will begin to see the impact that the president at a time has made a pronouncement that your education and your skill, that skill acquisition and education is at par.
Because at the end of the day, both are meant to solve problems. So if you have skills that can solve problems, you should be equal on that basis with someone who went to school to study a particular course with intention to also come and solve societal problems.
Like you have said, solving the societal problem, and then the president mentioned that is for the nation building. So that is tailored to nation building, which is very good. So concerning the repayment plan, so the new law now says that the students after graduation goes for NYSC, and then after 2 years of service, that's post NYSC, that is when you start considering payment. So there are variations. So if you are in job, then you start paying 10% of your salary to pay back. So it's not, then if you are in self-employment, then you tell us how do you want to pay back, and some people can pay at once. You understand? And you know, I have capacity now, I can pay at once. Then if you are in self-employment, you make arrangement also. And if you are not employed, you write to the board, to the loan board, to be able to, you know, to be able to be aware of your employment status. So that's very fair enough. And then if there's incapacitation, maybe accident or death or anything like that, they should be notified too. So I think that is flexible, that is malleable enough. You understand? And then the loan is being sponsored by the Education Tax Fund. So there's a continuous replenishing of the funds so that a lot of people can be captured. You understand? So it actually brings a new hope for education in entirety. You know, that thing that we will look at and we see that is bleak, you know, for students, you know, for young people that want to further education, you know, that means there's a way that the excuses have been limited. You know?
But the president actually said that no student will stay out of school for lack of school fees and
things like that. So it's still going to go through there's going to be a test run.
Definitely.
So we are at the test run phase now. All the actors are on the table right now. All the stakeholders are on the table now, and looking at, and that's why there are rooms for amendment in the future. Looking at, okay, we have run this thing for the last 10 years. That's how we do in the private sector actually. So just to run a SWOT analysis on the law and say how are we doing. And I think that is something that is new in Nigeria that we need to really look at, to be able to evaluate ourselves. To be able to say how far is this project. How far is this project, working? How many people have we been able to onboard? The onboarding process and things like that. And that's why I'm looking at, okay, the private sector needs to be carried along
from day one.
From day one. And in fact, the level of progress and stuff that in the past have been sustainable is when the private sector actually lead the project. And so I think especially the financial institutions, the bank has actually not favored things in this life. From our organization now, the partners that we have, there are very few that fund education, education financing are very, very few, So now that the government is taking this stand, I think the private sector will align, and then the financial institution, like the Apex Bank is the one leading the charge. Okay,
so but how susceptible or how vulnerable is this law to abuse? Because you did mention that some people have a very bad relationship with payment of loan. When you give them loan, they have a very bad habit of not, owning up to their own part. But from what you have read of the new document, how open or how vulnerable is this new law to abuse?
Okay, presently a date for starting the loan program has not been fixed yet. Okay. And okay, like let me just cite an example so that we'll be able to be in line. Is that Alex Oyema just did his earpiece, and yesterday they were crying that the website has been cloned. Some people were defrauded or something, which is a very, very bad thing. Yeah, it happens, but that means orientation is going to be the solution. Okay. You understand? There has to be orientation. That this is a means to help, and then what I'm saying is that it's going to take a time. It's going to take a while before that attitude fades off. That means the resolve of the government to be able to get it right. We have a system in Nigeria that, okay, like I was part of a program by Bank of Industry, and as that program was going on, they were giving money, and then people refused to pay back. It was, the GP money then in that regime, and it was zero interest. Just pay back what you were given. People refused to turn up, and consequentially, the government stopped it for some states. Yeah, you understand? And eventually, the whole program went down. So that means there must be a resolve at the end of the tunnel to be able to see the program to fruition, but with the mindset and the aim, So and when you talk about abuse is not only from the angle of the people that want to
benefactors.
In fact, the people that are, we're talking, we still have the issue of nepotism in Nigeria, the favoritism and things like that. So if that can be handled, and then the government can have the endurance to tire out the bad eggs, you understand, and be able to get to the place, that's why I talk about evaluation. I'm able to say where is the leak coming from? Who are the people collecting, and or the double names? In fact, for government, they are still dealing with ghost worker. That's why the IPPS was introduced.
But I thought from the beginning, those who are to manage this process said it will be very difficult for one person to have double registration. It will also be very difficult for you not to be traced, because part of the requirement will be your BVN and NIN, and then that the entire process is largely digitized, such that there will be less of human involvement, particularly at the stage of application. Do you see this as a plus for the project?
Okay, generally I would say, commenting on technology in Nigeria, we are still at a very developmental stage. You understand? When you say data, that's why I mentioned data earlier, that how we have multiple layers of data. Every agency is collecting data. But with CBN at the ebb of affair, and then they are the one custodian the BVN, and then they can be able to trace and all the young ones are coming into the NIN by their registration on WAEC and JAM and things like that. I am very positive that we should be able to, with the level of technology that we have around now, we should be able to manage it. If I was even hearing that WAEC is about going to CBT, so it should be a walk in the park with the technology that we have.
Okay, so finally, what do you see how do you see this particular scheme adding to the quality, because you raised concern about quality of education? If government can take care of tuition and all of that, I mean, if this scheme can take care of tuition, do you see this process in the long run also leading to government, you know, coming in to intervene, especially with respect to provision of infrastructure in our educational system and other very much needed interventions that will lead to enhanced quality in our educational system?
Immediately this law was signed, you know, as an advocacy, we just tick that one in our target as on
to the next one. And that's where you actually started from your response. You started from, okay, what is the next after that? I wanted to stop you there, but I say this is what advocacy do.
Advocacy is about, you know, calling the attention. I used to say that the government can't do it alone, and it's as if we are enemies of the government. Advocacy is to shout on top of our voice, you are forgetting this one, you need to pay attention to this. So I think the next thing I feel we should just jump into right next with the willingness of this government, you understand, is to just look at redesigning the curriculum.
Okay.
You know, be able to rejig, you know, I feel this government has a little bit of futuristic approach to whatever that the government is up to. You know, let's just jump right in and just have a vision for the educational sector. You know, we have settled a very major that this is the entry barrier to a whole lot. You know, we have a whole lot of out of school children. We have a lot of people drop. So we are settling the baseline, the entry barrier. So when they come into the school, what are they getting? I think that is what's going to inform the infrastructure. That is what's going to inform the quality of teachers. Are we doing a retraining for our teachers? Are we rejigging technology? You know, the laboratories. Okay. Like I used to say, I studied education, so I have a background in education. So one of the purpose of our curriculum, according to our research, is that the curriculum was designed in the time when people were going to the moon. So Nigeria also wanted to send people to the moon. Can you imagine how archaic that? And over 40-60 years, we have not even landed the rockets near the moon. Do you understand? That means we have targeted a wrong course. You know, we not look at our internet goal. Maybe our founding fathers then, they were having, you know, maybe there are a lot of influence, but now we have seen that our indigenous problems are not having indigenous solutions coming from us. So we produce graduates that are fit for outside, and that is why the protest people are having this generation is to draw out of the country, and they fit perfectly. They do well in the because all the educations and everything that we have in Nigeria is preparing us for a civilization that does not exist in our continent. So we need to redefine and say, where is Nigeria going? What kind of leader do we want to have? Look at Senegal. You understand? The guy's own bread is from, I was told like a few years ago, he was still, you know, he was catching form with his friend. They just came together, let's do it, you know, and they are here now at 40, you know. So where do we want our young ones to be? You know, like we used to say in our organization that the youth are 60% of our population now, but they are going to be 100% of our future. So the kind of future we want to have should be the, you know, the listed into the kind of curriculum that we have. You understand? That we'll be able to pick it and say, in the next 10 years, when you go to this curriculum, you are going to be able to fit into this thing that we are doing. You know, and I think that is something that the actors need to come together. The Minister of Education, call out the technocrats. If we do look at the indigenous problems and begin to bring indigenous solutions through our educational system.
And I have to say on this note a sincere thank you to you, Mr. Victor Adetolaju, who is the founder, Association for Students' Social Welfare in Nigeria for this very, very elaborate insight on this very important bill that has now been signed into law by the president, talking about the student loan bill that is now a law in Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming, and we hope that when we invite you next again, you will make it here to be here to, of course, provide these very important insights on very topical topics. Thank you very much for investing your time, you there, our viewer, and of course, on this note, I have to say my bye-byes. But before I go, I will leave you in the hands of our Investment Plus team who are here to give you those very important financial tips, and thereafter, of course, it's bye-bye from me. See you again tomorrow, same time, same station. My name is Usman Katun Umar. Have a very wonderful day.